So, you want to get into VGC, but you don't know where to start. Or maybe you just want to know what are you going up against. Well, that's why this video is on every single main type of Pokemon VGC team, mostly what is prevalent in the current formats of Reg H and Reg J. Let's just jump in, shall we? Please note, this will be a 2 or 3 part series. First up, we've got Hyper Offense Team. What's a Hyper Offense team, I hear you ask? Well, it's a team that stacks fast, hard-hitting attackers to often overwhelm opponents before they can set up defense, or a lot of the time, before they can do anything full stop. Now, let's look at some popular Pokemon for this style of team. First up, we've got the monster of a Pokemon, that is Fluttermane. Its HP is through the dirt, and its attack and defense are really low, but its special attack, special defense, and speed make up for it. Its special attack and speed being 135 allow it to wail on everything with, due to its typing, boosted moves like Moonblast. And its special defense lets it take some special hits, though its low HP stat means it still won't be surviving much. It being a past Paradox Pokemon and having access to Photosynthesis means that it does pair well with Koraidon, and its typing is also amazing in Ghost Fairy. Next, it is Chi-Yu or Chen-Pao. Looking at Chi-Yu, it has its ability Beads of Ruin, weakening the special defense of all the Pokemon around it that don't also have Beads of Ruin, aka on Chi-Yu. And it has the same special attack stat as Fluttermane, so we'll be doing a lot of the same thing, with moves like Overheat to use. Though its speed is lower, and it trades some special defense and some speed for higher attack and a higher defense. It still won't be using much of that attack stat though. Why use it over Fluttermane then? Well, it has Stab on its fire moves, but so does Fluttermane on its fairy moves, but it does gain access to generally higher base power fire type moves, and also has the move Nasty Plot, adding +2 stages to its special attack, which is an absolutely huge buff. Next up, another one of the Treasures of Ruin, it's Chen-Pao, whose ability Sword of Ruin lets it cut the physical defense of all other Pokemon on the field that aren't Chen-Pao, which this is great for it, because its base attack stat is 120, with a good base speed of 135, like Fluttermane. Now, as you can see, that's a sweeper. Now, give it Sword Stance and its amazing signature move Icicle Crash, which can flinch the target, then you have an amazing Pokemon. Next up, you have a Pokemon which has been dominating Reg H, Sneasler, the evolution of Sneasel's Hisuian variant, with some really good abilities, like Unburden and Poison Touch especially, because Pressure's kind of useless in comparison. It has another really high attack stat of 130, and a pretty good speed stat of 120, though it's not exactly going to be taking physical attacks very well. A lot of the time it will run Choice Band and Poison Touch, and then essentially close combat you, then give it U-turn and make it even better. Lastly for this category, we have Koraidon and Miraidon. Koraidon is most commonly run at this point with a Life Orb, and Flare Blitz, and Close Combat. Sure, it's going to be getting a lot of debuffs to its defense and special defense, or going to be taking a lot of recoil damage from that Flare Blitz and Life Orb, but it's still going to be putting out some crazy damage while it's around. It also usefully sets up the sun with its ability or a Carrion Pulse. This also heightens the stats of any Pokemon around it with photosynthesis, like Fluttermane. As for Miraidon, it has pretty much the same stat spread as Koraidon, with a high speed stat of 135, though it speed ties with Chien-Pao and Fluttermane, as well as obviously Koraidon, except it swaps that amazing physical stats for amazing special ones instead. Its ability sets up electric terrain, which is great for its signature move Electro Drift, to wreak havoc on everything. It also learns U-Turn to get it out of there quick, and most of the time is run with heavy duty boosts, meaning it won't be affected by things like spikes or stealth rock. Speaking of signature moves, people have kind of dropped Koraidon's signature move a bit, Collision Course, which has the added benefit of doing even more damage on super effective hits. Though, the same thing applies to Miraidon's signature move Electro Drift, except it wasn't dropped, as it already has Stab. Miraidon and Koraidon both have that use choice specs instead. Now, just quickly before moving on, what do I tend to like for Hyper Offense? Well, I like to go for Lucario, Life Orb Lucario. Though that's only because I already have one, which can be used quite easily. Or I've been trying out a bulky Koraidon, but that isn't Hyper Offense, is it? Quick mention, Hyper Offense pairs well with Tailwind. Next up is the pretty simple team type of Balanced. It mixes offense and defense, but often pivots between bulky support and strong attackers to adapt to different matchups, and generally has a pretty good type chart. So let's look at some good Pokemon for this type of team. First up, you've got Incineroar, the most used Pokemon in VGC of 2024, and probably 2025 as well, with things like Fake Out and Parting Shot, as well as a U-Turn, Flare Blitz, Taunt, and so much more in its arsenal, coupled with its ability Intimidate, and its quite good typing of Fire and Dark. Incineroar is the ultimate support Pokemon. Speaking of Fake Out, Tinkaton anybody? Please? Next up, you've got Rillaboom, to control the terrain. We will look at terrain themes later, and its signature move, Grassy Glide, which has good priority and will get boosted from both Stab and the terrain. Nice. Next up, a Pokemon which has been ruling VGC since Gen 5, Landorus, and in this case, it's Therian form. It's got the ability Intimidate, lowering the attack of other Pokemon on the field, which is obviously really good, and it has an attack stat of 145. That's higher than Koraidon, obviously making it hit really, really hard. Though often it actually gets played defensively with an item like Rocky Helmet. In fact, it often even uses Rocky Helmet for its more offensive variants. Lastly, another king from Gen 5, Amoonguss. The amount of Pokemon which have had safety goggles put on them because of this little mushroom with a silly name is absolutely mad. I personally really like it, as you can probably see from the gameplay clips. What makes this Pokemon so absolutely amazing? Well, first of all, it's really tanky. Second of all, its speed stat is through the dirt, which might seem like a bad thing until you consider Trick Room teams, which I will be covering at some point. It also has a grass and poison typing, meaning it's naturally immune to moves like Spore and Toxic. Speaking of Spore and Toxic, those are two moves it gets access to and finds really useful, as those are two status conditions which can really destroy a team. It can heal its team with Pollen Puff and do small damage with it, or you could replace that with Sludge Bomb and deal bigger damage without healing. And lastly, there's Rage Powder. What Rage Powder does is it redirects moves your opponent uses into Amoonguss. For example, you've got a fire type out and a super effective water type move coming towards it, and you just need it to stay in that one more turn so it can get the KO. Use Rage Powder and Amoonguss will tank the hit. Though obviously sometimes people will just sacrifice Amoonguss. But anyway, it's really useful for keeping your partner alive, and a Pokemon I absolutely recommend using. Lastly for this video, it is stall teams. These teams are often about outlasting your opponent, and often dealing chip damage while denying their win conditions. Win conditions are an endgame state you want to get the game to. A lot of the time, these teams will take some KOs, then win on the timer, a strategy that I'm not the biggest fan of, though I do like using bulky Pokemon, and stalling and disrupting is something I do enjoy. I would like to mention that this is another team type which pairs quite well with Trick Room, and also Amoonguss also works quite well in this team type, though I talked about it last segment. First up, we've got the duo of Dondozo and Tatsugiri, with their abilities letting Tatsugiri essentially turn Dondozo into a mech for it to pilot, and them essentially going with the slogan, "Sleep until you sweep." And I don't mean sleep like the status condition. Essentially what happens is Dondozo gets turned into a super bulky monster with amazing attack by Tatsugiri. There's not much more to it. Next up, there's the Titan that is Cresselia. It's got a nice ability of Levitate, making it immune to ground type moves, and is most often actually just used as a Trick Room setter, so I guess I'll cover it more when doing Trick Room, and most of the time is given a mental herb, to mean it can bypass things like Taunt or Torment. As for its moveset, it gets things like Moonblast and Moonlight for healing, hence the stall usage, and Lunar Dance if you want to do the opposite of stall and kill yourself, in return for healing all the HP and PP of one of your other Pokemon. And then there's Ice Beam. It isn't to do with the moon. Next up, we've got a slightly surprising Pokemon for me, in Umbreon, so it's pretty niche. Though mostly appears in Reg J as a niche. Like honestly, I would have thought it would be in Reg H, not J with all the powerful legendaries. Dark-type Fox has the ability Inner Focus, meaning it can't flinch and is immune to Intimidate. Or you could go for Synchronize, meaning that for example, if Umbreon was burnt, then the opponent would be burnt as well, though I think it might work both ways. It's also got a very respectable special defense stat, letting it get onto these kind of stall teams, though quite rarely. Looking at strategies for it tends to use the move Foul Play, which is based on the opponent's attack stat, and something like Toxic to inflict a status condition. It can use Moonlight like Cresselia to heal the user by amount which I neglected to mention was dependent on the weather actually, and obviously there is Protect, and another move being Wish, which just restores 50% of the user's maximum HP. Pretty nice if you ask me. Now for a Pokemon you've been seeing all throughout this video, and I personally really like Skeledirge. Now, let's go over the use of this thing quickly. It can stop setup with its ability Unaware, making it ignore other Pokemon stat changes when taking or doing damage. But that doesn't stop the respectively bulky Pokemon snowballing through teams with its signature move Torch Song, which ups its special attack by 1 stage every time it's used. Then with a Terra type of Ghost, you can have it shed quite a few of its Fire type weaknesses. Though it's more commonly ran with a Terra type of Fairy or Poison to shed pretty much all of its weaknesses. It itself is pretty good for setup apart from torch song snowballing though. It can use the move Will-O-Wisp to burn opponents and Slack Off to increase its longevity, letting it do the chip damage stall teams are known for. Then it can bring out Earth Power as a move you would absolutely not expect the fire type to have, and Shadow Ball or Hex for Stab Ghost. Well, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and stick around for part 2 to see me cover both Tailwind and Trick Room teams, and eventually part 3 where I will most likely cover Terrain and Weather teams. This was The Historical Gamer. Goodbye! Sonic!